I am a 20-year-old male and only recently started paying attention to my reproductive health, including testicular checks, sperm health, and hormones. However, whenever I bring it up, even with friends or older men, it usually gets dismissed or turned into a joke. It seems that unless you are actively trying to have children or something is seriously wrong, no one talks about it. Meanwhile, women receive extensive education on their cycles, hormones, fertility, and more. For men, the message is basically, just do not get someone pregnant. Why do we not take this seriously as well? Story 1. I doubt anyone actually thinks it is a joke, but talking about it with your friends is awkward, and that is probably why they joke about it. Also, 20-year-olds are not typically worried about this sort of thing. The consequences of getting someone pregnant and getting pregnant yourself are quite different. Story 2. You're shooting blanks, are you? Is the typical laddish response I get. Now, I am very careful about who I discuss this with. When I found out about my fertility issues, I was devastated, but it led me to uncover other health problems. It has not been a fun or easy time, and it is absolutely not a joke. Story 3. I think it is important to be educated on reproductive health, as there should be no stigma attached to sex education. The female reproductive system is more complex and requires more time and awareness to maximize well-being. For men, reproductive health does not typically interfere with daily life and health, aside from the possibility of fathering children or developing cancer. Circumcision is another topic often debated, but its impact on men's overall health and well-being is generally not significant, except that it supports full autonomy over their genitalia. Story 4. If you can find Rode Gilbert, Stand Up to Infertility somewhere online, it is worth watching. It covers a lot of what you have mentioned regarding the United Kingdom. Story 5. Not saying it is right, but women's experiences are more complicated due to hormones and menstruation. Story 6. They do not talk much about it in school. Where I live, you would be surprised by the number of late teenagers and early adults, both men and women, who do not even know what a prostate is. Story 7. Not sure it's lacking more than it's just not a concern for most guys. I got my sperm checked when my wife wasn't getting pregnant. Before then, I didn't need to, so I didn't worry about it. Can't say I've ever had an issue with hormones that I know of. Women, on the other hand, have their reproductive system hijack their lives for about 25% of the time, so it is more of a thing, maybe. No doubt the pressure on women to bear children is a bit more than men being fathers, and that is part of it, I guess. Story 8. You are doing the right thing and should not be worried about those people. Sometimes more educated or sound-minded individuals get overlooked as some alien or foreign element. Do not be disheartened by their views and reactions. Sooner or later, they will realize you are correct. Perhaps focus on your own duty for your health and well-being. Story 9. For me, it is because going to the doctor over an issue that turns out to be minor every time is money out of my pocket that I have to work harder to make up for. Stress from lack of money will harm me just as quickly. Story 10. It's a multiple factor issue that also depends on where you live in the world. At least where I live, the reasons why men's reproductive health is not examined in more detail are below. Contact with professionals. In general, women are far more likely to visit their health professionals for ailments or problems than men. Furthermore, the gap widens as the purpose of the visits becomes more intimate. Awareness, exposure, and medical campaigning. Due to a significant number of celebrity deaths from cervical cancer, HPV vaccinations are given to schoolgirls, smear tests are promoted, and major campaigns have been launched, which is good and well done. However, despite the national push for prostate screening for men, it has lost momentum. While it still continues, there is not as strong a campaign for men's health issues, as it often falls on deaf ears. Fundraising for issues. This relates to the previous point. Funds, research, and grants for particular health issues often depend on people coming together to drive the cause forward. Who do you think is better at driving a cause? Women are. I do not know why men think they are making too much fuss or complaining. To simplify, men tend not to talk about or seek medical assistance, especially for intimate issues, and rarely want to raise awareness or be part of campaigns to address these issues. Until that changes, men's health issues will be overlooked. Story 11. What gap is there that you think needs fixing? I don't feel the need to discuss my testicles with my friends. I have a doctor for that. Our reproductive parts and hormone cycles are less complicated than women's and don't impact our day-to-day life as much, so there is less to talk about. Managing menstrual cycles takes more effort and knowledge, so women talk about it and teach young women more about it. Unless there is a big issue, again, that is what doctors are for, not friends. There is a cultural issue that men don't take their own health as seriously as women, and they should. Go to the doctor if you have a health concern. Joking about something does not mean we cannot also take it seriously. Talking about private topics like our genitalia can be awkward, so it is natural to make light of it. Checking your own testicles is important but can be uncomfortable to discuss. So yes, I might make a joke about touching yourself, but seriously, check your testicles regularly. Story 12. Most people talking about male hormones are wannabe bodybuilders or alpha males spouting the most inaccurate information imaginable, so it can be hard to take the topic seriously. Additionally, male hormones are relatively stable, while women experience extreme hormonal shifts during their periods, pregnancy, and menopause, which regularly and significantly affect them. Serious hormonal issues in men are rarer and usually related to conditions like cancer, with awareness heavily advocated, such as the importance of checking for prostate cancer as men age. Story 13. It is not discussed often, not because it is a deep taboo, but because there are millions of possible health problems you can have, and generally that is not a major source of issues for men, especially before middle age. Paying excessive attention to something that is not an issue or likely to be seems odd to most people. The same is not true for women, where it is one of their biggest health issues, starting from their teenage years onward. As noted by others, even with very little attention from most men, testicular cancer kills a few hundred men each year, whereas breast cancer, despite significant attention, kills tens of thousands. These problems are not equivalent. Story 14. Men do not take their health seriously by and large, and even then they consult no one other than a medical professional. Story 15. Aside from testicular cancer, reproductive health at 20 is mostly a non-issue for the vast majority of men. Keep checking your testicles for unusual growths or nodules, and reserve your reproductive health discussions for your primary care doctor. Story 16. I think you are conflating positive views on men's reproductive health with oversharing and openly talking about medical health screenings. You might think otherwise, but discussing pelvic exams and gynecology is not as popular a topic as you might believe. I think it has become a joke because talking about sperm health is awkward. This discussion seems to be missing the part about communicating with others regarding fertility and sperm. Also, you mention if you are not actively having children or do not have a serious problem, what else is there to discuss? Hey man, how is your sperm count today? Any noticeable changes? How was your morning erection? Story 17. The premise of your question is flawed, I would say. The people around you take it as a joke. I remember learning about cycles, hormones, fertility, and related topics back in school. I attended a Catholic school run by nuns. Nobody around me made jokes about phimosis, testicular torsion, and similar issues, but I do not recall discussing these topics much with friends. In the end, if I get someone pregnant, my biggest worry is losing some financial independence and having a new mouth to feed. If a girl gets pregnant, she might die or have a stillbirth due to complications during childbirth. Having seen my wife in the delivery room, I can say it is a frightening process, and thankfully all went well. However, my reproductive system issues are unlikely to be as dangerous as those for a woman, and if they were, they would never be treated as a joke. As a commenter said above, find better social circles. Story 18. Women's reproductive health is definitely not taken as seriously as it should be. On the other hand, men generally do not see the doctor for multiple reasons. It is seen as a sign of weakness, cost, and time. Should it be taken more seriously? Absolutely. Story 19. I feel like men's health in general is treated as a joke because most men do not want to get health checks, myself included. I know my body is probably all sorts of messed up, and I do not want a doctor to confirm that. My pinky has been hurting for 6 months now after my child hit it with something hard while playing, and I keep making excuses to avoid seeing a doctor. Story 20. What exactly do you think needs to be discussed or done that is not currently being addressed? Men's reproductive health is straightforward. Just check your testicles periodically. Other than that, there is not much else to do. Male hormones follow a 24-hour cycle, so each day is similar in that regard. Women's reproductive system is more complex, and their hormones follow a 28-day cycle, which makes managing hormones more complicated. Additionally, pregnancy affects their bodies, so there is naturally a greater focus on understanding fertility issues for women. Honestly, this feels like an attempt to shift focus with a "what about the men" argument. Not everything needs to be a competition. We can acknowledge that women face greater challenges in this area. Story 21. Unfortunately, women's health is often treated as a joke. The information you hear online is relatively recent, with awareness brought to attention by other women rather than doctors. This issue stems from years of not being taken seriously regarding many concerns, including abnormal pain, being told to just give birth, false diagnoses, or no diagnosis at all. This remains a significant problem. It is concerning that men do not discuss these issues or get regular checkups. Just because your friends ignore it does not mean you should. Educate yourself about your body and advocate for the care you need. Everyone deserves proper health care. Story 22. All in all, men do not take their health seriously enough. There is a stigma that needing help means you are weak. The genitals are typically strongly associated with manliness, so it is a double strike. Do not talk about weakness, and definitely do not talk about weakness below the waist, is just what we are ingrained with. Story 23. Quick question. Tell me which part of men's physical and mental health is taken seriously that you thought only this one specific field was being left out? Story 24. This is just a social thing, and not all people are like that. I don't have boys of my own, but I've always told my nephews they can ask me anything they need to. No judgments and no laughing, although some of the questions they've asked did make me chuckle, to be honest. They know I will either respond directly if appropriate or facilitate the conversation with their dad, especially if it's something I feel he should be answering and the boys are too embarrassed to ask directly. However, just to back you up, there have been questions the boys have asked, and their dad will tell them, "I'm not sure about that, go ask Uncle Abraxas." I'm always like, dude, you've had a penis almost as long as I have. How do you not know that? Story 25. You are absolutely right. We should take this more seriously. Many young men die of testicular cancer because they do not know how or why to check themselves, and many hormonal issues get ignored. Yes, men do not have as complex needs when it comes to reproductive health as women, but less should not equal none. A big issue is that fathers are not as upfront about this with their sons as mothers are with their daughters. If a father does not take it seriously, why should a son? Hopefully, the future generation will break that cycle. Story 26. Because as long as you do not get someone pregnant by doing something unwise, you are fine. Yes, the people who could be carrying a fetus for 9 months, who experience bleeding, cramping, need to buy products designed specifically for that purpose, and can have many other complications due to their genitals will need more information than you. That is like saying it is unfair that men receive so much attention when it comes to prostate cancer when women also have a colon. Story 27. Male genital mutilation at birth is still routine in many parts of the world. How is it surprising that nobody cares about men? Story 28. Lots of serious discussion can be framed with a joke to make it less awkward, especially when dealing with that topic. 5 ejaculations a week for prostate health is easier to accept if the person is joking about having to reduce their frequency in half to achieve that. Even then, there is serious advice, such as wearing looser pants and underwear, checking testes for cancer after a hot shower, and avoiding the use of oil-based lubricants with latex condoms. Story 29. Most people do not have problems with it or are in denial. It is not taken seriously because most expect to receive medical care only for life-threatening conditions. Story 30. Because men have dismissed the idea of a safe space among other men throughout society, it is hard to find an environment to discuss serious health topics. In other words, patriarchy has caused regression in ways that we as a whole have not been able to overcome. Story 31. Because men can be stubborn, they often ignore the doctor or downplay health issues. This is usually a combination of pride, ego, stubbornness, and fear of being seen as weak. Cancer does not care about your ego. Men can definitely do better with their health. I now fully understand why women get frustrated when they have to make appointments and then encourage their partner to go. It is embarrassing. Story 32. Because the men versus female war that the media have created is being skillfully maintained, many people have no problem with it. That is the real tragedy. Both men and women see this narrative and think, that is okay. Story 33. I personally do. All of my ancestors died from prostate issues or greatly suffered from them until death. I recently turned 62, and thus far I am in great health. Keep doing what you are doing and live a good life. Story 34. Because reproductive health for men is not nearly as deadly as it is for women. Few conditions in male bodies carry a comparable risk of death to childbirth. Additionally, men do not have menstrual periods to worry about. Men are not required to spend money on reproductive health if they choose not to, unlike women who do not get to choose whether or not to have periods. Is there something specific you feel is overlooked? Story 35. Women's issues are much more complicated and closely connected. However, you are right. Men don't talk about it. We all just live in fear of our genitalia being 1 centimeter smaller than the next person. Greater than insanity. Most people don't even understand the connection between food and health. Just look at the lineup at McDonald's. Choose apples and carrots for food. Story 36. Men are raised to be stoic and disposable. If you do not live up to heroic stoicism, then you are tossed aside because women are taught they only deserve the best. Story 37. I've often wondered about this. Where I live, there are really good national screening programs for breast and cervical cancer. There is nothing for prostate, skin, or testicular cancer, which are the cancers that most affect men. You do not even get prostate checks until your 50s unless you specifically ask for them. Story 38. It's not pleasant, but it's true. A man's reproductive health is an innate measurement of his masculinity. It is one of the main ways men have historically been evaluated. This is similar to how a barren woman was viewed as less of a woman over 50 years ago. The major issue is that many people advocate for women, but few advocate for men. Story 39. Just do not do anything unwise, eat healthy, avoid gaining excessive weight, and it will benefit most parts of your body. There is no special attention needed. Story 40. Because I do not bring children into the world from my body, and women do. I mean, isn't this kind of obvious? Story 41. Because apparently, if it is not falling off or about to make a baby, we are just supposed to walk it off. Great system, huh? Story 42. Men's issues in general are not taken seriously because it is assumed that men have all the power in society, even though only about 1% do. How could they possibly face serious issues? Story 43. You should have known our reproductive health is completely ignored the moment they cut your reproductive organ at birth. Story 44. You sound like a hypochondriac. Most men do not have reproductive health issues. Things work fine, and they do not need any special attention. Be grateful that men are far less likely to have problems. Also, much of the poking and prodding that women have been subjected to, at least in the United States, has been shown to be useless and not beneficial. I am glad that no similar procedures have been pushed on men. Story 45. Only small-minded people do this. It is the year 2025, and if you as an individual do not see the necessity and seriousness of your health as a man, the problem is with your mind. It is good and mature that at 20 years old you are doing this. It is really nobody's business anyway, as long as you talk to your doctor. Story 46. Because male private parts are often used for humor. People joke about the penis and testicles all the time, so they are taken less seriously. Meanwhile, female private parts are considered more taboo to talk about. Story 47. Do you want every medical problem to be linked to your menstrual cycle or anxiety, while in reality you might be dying of preventable cancer? You have no idea how poorly women are treated regarding their reproductive health. Anything not focused on producing children or maximizing profit extraction will be ignored by both doctors and legislation. All information that might discourage you from having children is actively withheld to coerce you into having as many and as early as possible. You are in excruciating pain and bleeding so badly you are anemic? Too bad. It's considered part of being a woman, and you need to hide the consequences and smile while doing so. Otherwise, women in the past would never have gained the rights to work and be paid for it. You have to spend your day bleeding at work, being expected not only to keep doing your job, but to excel at it without showing any symptoms or inconveniencing anyone. You want to get sterilized as a man? There are multiple clinics available in your area ready to perform the procedure with minimal questioning. As a woman, your rights to personal autonomy belong to the state and the interests of an imaginary man you haven't met. You will be treated with the same respect as a slaughterhouse animal. A breeding cow considered hysterical for refusing to produce more offspring. Birth control was created for men as well but was not pursued because men found the exact same side effects intolerable. As a woman, you are expected to endure or to die trying, since pregnancy is potentially deadly. Birth control that damages your body and quality of life is treated as a worthy trade-off. Up until recently, you received no numbing while getting an intrauterine device. The closest comparison without exaggeration would be twisting one of your testicles for the duration of the procedure and enduring it with minimal fuss. Women would pass out, vomit, and experience cold shakes due to the pain, and this is still treated as completely normal by medical professionals. Your frame of reference has no idea of the bodily horror that is women's reproductive health care. My mother died from cancer spreading throughout her body. She was in her 40s. She asked to be sterilized before she developed ovarian cancer but was refused by medical professionals until the cancer had already spread and the organ was no longer salvageable. Why? Because after having 2 children, she was thought to have the potential to have 1 more, despite saying she was done, being divorced with 2 young kids, and barely scraping by as a single working mother. The question, what if she met another man and he wanted kids, is why my mother is dead. Would you like to die for the potential of making someone else's children? Story 48. Because we are men, we do not care whatever happens to us. Misfortune to a human being who happens to have a fallacy and scrotum is just considered peak comedy. Story 49. Men are foolish. I've been called a metrosexual for plucking my eyebrows. It wouldn't surprise me if you could find a man who calls you gay for washing your hands after using the restroom. Story 50. Very good question. I am wondering this myself as I sit here with pain in my right testicle that has persisted and worsened for months and finally made an appointment for today. Story 51. Speaking personally, I do not care. If there is nothing serious that will kill me, I do not pay attention. It is not relevant to the life I lead. Story 52. Women receive education from other women. The difference is that women uplift other women, but a man could discuss mental health or reproductive health, and another man might make fun of him. The call is coming from inside the house. Story 53. No one cares about men until we are dead or seriously injured to the point where we can no longer provide. It is not only reproductive health where male care is treated like a joke. Healthcare in general treats mental and physical care for men poorly. Male suicides are extremely high, and no one pays attention. A woman named Nora Vincent decided to live as a man for a week because she thought men had it easy, but she ended up ending her own life through assisted suicide in 2022. Men are treated poorly, yet only women are often recognized as victims. Story 54. I guess our anatomy is not as complicated. There is the penis and the testicles. We do not experience menstruation every month, and we also have the option to leave if we cause a pregnancy, while women do not. At my school, we were taught about hormones, fertility, and genetics as part of our sex education around 2010. Maybe I misunderstood the question, but I do not see much for us to take seriously outside of cancers. I am not trying to be rude. I am just sharing my viewpoint. Story 55. There are more men at the top in nearly all areas of culture, politics, industry, and religion. Ask them. Story 56. You think men's reproductive health is a joke? You should look into men's reproductive rights. Men have no reproductive rights. Men are not protected against sex crimes that women commit, such as paternity fraud and baby trapping, also known as enslavement. Men have no choice about becoming parents or not. The woman can choose to terminate the pregnancy, or she can force the man to provide financial support. Men are a slave class. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.